about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good afternoon. I've just realised I've gone onto a three-screen thing compared to two. That's very slick. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see lots of you joining us live. Hi, Craig. How are you doing?
I'm good, Duncan. Looking forward to kind of 45 minutes or so of education, everyone's favourite.
Absolutely, and having been looking at some of the comments as they're coming through, and people asking lots of questions about, saying, are we going to be looking at some stuff on education policy? I'm sure we will cover some policy at some point during today's session. We're going to be going through a range of activities, quickfire activities, testing your knowledge and understanding of some education topics. Do please join in. You can use the live chat function to suggest your answers. I will keep an eye on the chat window as well. And if you ask us any questions about some of what we're looking at, we'll try and spot those and answer them for you. And if at any point we sort of encounter some activities where people are perhaps struggling or there's some misunderstanding, we'll try and explain them as we go. Okay. Shall we get cracking? Okay.
Let's get started. I think it's me first, isn't it?
I think it will, but let's have a look.
What
have we got first up? Yes.
We do, yeah. We have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, for those of you who've joined us before, you'll know what we do in this activity. If you haven't joined us before, what we look at is we ask you to, we give you 2 minutes and we get you to identify 5 of something, 4 of something, 3 of something, 2 of something, 1 of something. Pretty straightforward. All you've got to do is type the number in the chat and then put your answers in. Okay, so first of all, for this activity, we're going to look at 5 marketization policies. So, can you identify a range of 5 marketization policies? 4 material factors that impact on achievement. I think it'd be a lot broader if I just sort of like said 4 factors. 3 functions of education. 2 types of school introduced by globalization. So that kind of horrible kind of spec point that nobody seems to like, which is globalization and educational policy, and 1 in-school process that impacts on achievement. Let's have our 2 minutes. People are already putting things through now. Go. Okay.
5,
So,
4, 3,
funding formula, league tables,
2,
Ofsted reports. Yeah.
1.
Hannah's come up with open enrollment. League tables, Ofsted, yeah. Caitlin's come up with role allocation for number 3, yeah. Good shout. League tables and Ofsted reports. National curriculum, Ofsted, league tables, open enrollment and funding formula. Really good, Sophie. League table, standardization, standardized testing, Ofsted, parentocracy, funding formula from Scrix. Excellent. Name has put down labeling, streaming, subcultures. We only wanted 1, but you've given us 3. Well done. I am setting streaming for number 1. Yeah. Arij labeling. Yeah. Excellent. Liana, secondary socialization. Yeah. Transmission of norms and values. Isla's come in for number 4, material factors, lack of nutrition. Yeah. Diet, housing. Excellent, Sadie. Jacob's coming with setting and streaming for 2 types of school introduced by globalization. I think that might be 3 there, but was it secondary socialization? It's running through pretty quick there. Scrix is coming for number 2, free school and international schools. Free schools, yeah. Online school, Pearson, yeah. So what we could talk about is there the expansion of sort of the reach of some of the exam boards. Labeling self-fulfilling prophecy. Number 1, lack of female SLT.
Yeah, senior leadership team. Yeah.
Yep. It's not quite the case now, though. But at the same point in time, it will be in the textbook.
4, 3.
Low economic
2,
capital, label and set and stream
1.
parentocracy. Lots of really good responses there. Excellent. So lots of engagement, lots of people coming up with really good responses. Let's go through what I've put as our answers here. So we'll start with our marketization policies, which pretty much everybody was getting exactly what I'd put, which was league table, standardized tests, open enrollment, formula funding, and Ofsted. There are lots of other marketization policies you could have put in there. Things like the introduction of city centre academies, because it gave students more choice, specialist schools, free schools. These are all marketization policies because they introduce choice and competition. You could have even put some things for competition in higher education as well. There's lots of different things you can with marketization. Students generally are quite strong on marketization policies. One thing I will remember is remember marketization policies start around about 1988. So think about those policies beyond that, and don't focus on policies that look to tackle disadvantage when you're talking about marketization. Okay, number 4, material factors. We've got some good answers through there. We've gone with diet, housing, access to resources and care and responsibilities. Lots of others, things like part-time jobs. We've got housing, diet, health, parents' income, parents' education. Parents' education would probably come under cultural factors.
Yeah.
But I can see why you would go with that, Jamila. Let's look at number 3. Promoting social solidarity, transmitting norms and values. Some people said secondary socialization for that. Preparing the future workforce. Obviously, that's kind of a Marxist one. We will look at a few other kind of functions of education later on in here. Role allocation, Jenny, that would be correct as well.
Absolutely.
2, we went with academies and free schools. These 2 types of schools introduced by globalization. We've mentioned this a few times across both the live streams and through our grade boosters that we've done this year. The academies are obviously influenced by the American charter school system, and free schools influenced by the Swedish friskola, which is a form of free school in Sweden. I said freedom then.
It is
Sweden.
freedom in
And
Sweden.
I've gone with setting and streaming, but things like labeling, teacher interactions, peer interactions, they can all have an impact on achievement. Obviously, remember, sort of like that kind of in-school processes is a separate specification point, and some of these can have impacts across different social groups.
Yep.
And somebody's gone TAC, which is thank you in Swedish.
Thank you in Swedish. It is tack som Wookie.
There you go.
And yeah, there were some really good answers to that. The in-school processes, that people came up with.
There were. We could do this in. You and Ian could do this in Swedish, and everyone else could have English subtitles. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay.
And just those subcultures. Yes, you could go for that as well. Sorry, she's popped through.
Someone's just asked, could you explain what PISA and TMSS is?
They are international ranking schemes, international ranking systems. So basically, students, for example, in PISA, I think students across, I can't remember the exact number, it's about 70 or 80 countries will all take similar tests, and then they will be ranked. And what happens is that the countries who are ranked highest, they tend to get other countries borrowing ideas from them. So the countries that are consistently at the top are things like the Chinese provinces, Singapore, South Korea. They tend to be very high up, so a lot of their ideas are borrowed. Free schools was borrowed from Sweden when Sweden was higher up the education, when higher up the PISA rankings. And TIMS is another form of ranking.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to do something called a connection spinner activity now, where we're going to look at some of the functions of education. We've got a range of functions of education, some of them being the ones that you identified in the last activity. Some of them are kind of functionalist type ones, some of them are more Marxist type ones. We could have had some feministy type ones in there as well, but that might have confused matters, so we'll stick with these ones. We're going to spin the wheel in a moment, but what you want to think is, wherever it lands, is how does education do this? What are the ways in which education does perform this function? Someone's asked, could you say reinforce capitalism for Marxism? Yeah, absolutely. One of the functions of a education system for Marxists would be to reinforce the capitalist system or support the capitalist system in some of the ways we've mentioned there, reproducing social class inequality and passing on a dominant ideology, for example. But okay, we're going to spin the wheel, thank you, Sol, and we're going to see where it lands. Okay, it'll be as much of a surprise to us as it is to you. Let's see. Okay, serving the needs of the economy. So how does the education system do this? And this could be in a positive kind of functionalist way or in a more critical sort of Marxist way. There are lots of ways in which the education system might serve the needs of the economy. Okay, we've got answers coming in straight away. Jenny's suggested role allocation. Okay, so one of the ways in which it might serve the economy is by allocating people to the most appropriate jobs. They come in so fast, I'm not going to be able to say as much about all of them as this. We've got role allocation, we've got marketing.
Specialist skills. Quite a few people saying specialist skills.
Yeah, teaching specialist skills. We've got some Marxist ones about it, preparing students to become docile workers. Absolutely. Training for specific jobs. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of really good ideas. Skilled workforce. But also hidden curriculum ideas coming through there as well. Obeying authority, correspondence principle. Lots of nice ones coming through there. Yeah. Sorry if I've missed your really good answer because they come through nice and fast, which is great. So emphasis on STEM.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
because that, of course, that is very much linked in with globalization as well.
Absolutely. And when we think about serving the needs of the economy, serving the needs of the contemporary economy is partly about globalization and managing in a global society.
There's one that not everyone will always come up with. Human capital theory. It's not always covered in everybody's textbooks. But the idea that sort of like obviously education prepares us for the workforce through that. I think it was Schultz. I always get it too close.
Excellent. So lots of people going lots of different ways there. So we've got the kind of Marxist ones there, correspondence principle, reproducing inequality. And then we've got the more sort of functionalist type ones, teaching specialist skills, and lots of other ones in your responses there. Fantastic. Very good. Okay. Okay, let's look. Well, shall we spin the wheel again? I think
Let's
we should
go.
spin the wheel again. Okay. Some people coming in. Some very good responses in there.
Yeah, there's a few people thought they could said warm bath theory. They might be a little bit confused with family. Talks about the stabilization of adult personalities in the family. So a few
Yeah.
people had said that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think just heard functionalism and gone, oh, it's warm bath theory.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Parsons writes about both, but yeah, not specifically about the warm bath theory is definitely in relation to families. Yeah, some people, I think some of these are coming through.
Blau and Duncan do
late.
talk about human capital theory as well, but so like often what's
Yeah.
referred to in some of the textbooks that are commonly used within A level is Schultz.
Oh, people coming in with loads of stuff now on reproducing social class inequality. There's so much, of course, you could use for this. How does the education system reproduce social class inequality? That's coming through so fast. I'm going to have to scroll right back up to where these first started coming in. There's so many. Myth and meritocracy, absolutely. Hidden curriculum, cultural capital, setting and streaming, ISA, labelling. Put middle class students in higher streams, role of private schools and public schools.
I'm really hoping this year that there is a question on social class. Looking at the answers coming through here, it'd be really good.
There's really good stuff. Yeah,
it'd be really nice.
Absolutely. A star to C economy. We might talk about that again later. So I won't say more about that right now. Silt shifting, sifting and sorting. Yeah, well, really good. Now, there are a couple of speech codes, language codes, ISA. A couple of answers talked about, we've got cream skimming and all sorts there. Talked about ethnicity in that just, absolutely you might be able to make those connections, but always just be cautious that if the question's asking about social class, that the focus of your response is on social class. Similarly, if the question's asking about ethnicity, the focus of your answer is about ethnicity.
And of course, there will be
subcultures.
Of course, there will be lots of explanations there that can go across both ethnicity and social class. But be specific when you're talking about. Just make sure that you're answering the question. That's the most important part, I think.
Yeah, these things do intersect in lots of different ways, but absolutely. Or habitus.
Phoebe's asked, what is cream skimming? Cream skimming is kind of part of the enrolment process where schools will select the best pupils. And through part of their enrolment process, what they do is they select the best pupils that will get decent grades at the end and make their school look better. The other side of that is silt shifting. I'll be careful about how I say that because I see it written so many different ways. Silt shifting is the idea that you remove those pupils who may be problematic and get low grades from your enrolments.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit like your sort of covert selection sort of idea, isn't it? Really, it's the idea that schools can select pupils even without doing a kind of open sort of admission test.
Yeah, I'm just seeing Isabel saying I thought there was a policy that forbid that. Yes, nowadays we tend to we've tended to moved on from that, but this is still contained in a lot of the textbooks because obviously this specification came out in 2015. There's been different educational policies that have come in since then to say, right, okay, you can't do these things. It doesn't mean schools don't. And this is often done through other methods, like what Duncan was just saying there, covert selection. For example, pricing uniforms really high, only advertising in middle-class areas, making sure that extra trips and extracurricular activities are too expensive for working-class kids. And it was Tuff and Brooks who looked at that idea.
Yeah, two important questions here. I just want to answer quickly. Are we going to talk about methods in this session as well? No, Thursday at 2:00 there will be a specific session on research methods. So if you can join us, do. Should you talk about policies that aren't used anymore? For example, the tripartite system. I mean, two things to say about that. One is it's still used in some places. It's not quite the same as it was, but you do still have the 11+ and grammar schools in quite a lot of parts of the country. But secondly, it just in the context, you might talk about it in the context of education policies over time. It depends on the wording of the question that you're answering. I think
Yeah.
that's
So,
probably
for example, I think a few years ago there was a question on selection policies, and you'd be quite right to use the tripartite system as an answer to that question on selection policies, for example.
yeah.
You could
Okay.
use it.
Absolutely, Brooke. There won't be a live stream on media this week, but keep your eyes peeled. We'll do plenty in the run up to the exam. So, okay, right.
Okay, so for our big reveal, what we do is we give you clues. Now, what we're looking for here is we're looking for specific sociologists. So we're going to give you some clues to research that has been done. We're going to give you some of the features of the research. The quicker you can get this, the better. There will be lives on families and households. We're going to kind of draw up a schedule, and we'll kind of let teachers and everybody else know. We're just doing a couple over half term. We're still on the Tutor to Your Grade Booster tour for another week after Easter, but we're doing a couple this week over Easter, just to kind of help people out. Okay, so big reveal. Let's have our first clue. So this piece of research looked into, or these sociologists looked into research into social class differences in education. Quite broad. I'm sure there's lots of sociologists that have looked at social class differences in education. Let's reveal. People asking about globalization, 30 market. I ain't going anywhere. I ain't touching that. Every year there is a moral panic about globalization.
We've had people suggesting this could be Willis or Bourdieu.
Examined how teachers interact with pupils. Okay, so Willis would be a good shout for the first one, but did Willis look at how teachers interact with pupils?
A little bit. It wasn't the main focus. It wasn't his main focus.
Ball's quite a good shout as well.
Rist, Sewell.
Sewell. Oh, there's quite a few good ones here coming up.
Let's look at Becker,
Rosenthal and Jacobson.
Yeah.
Let's look at our third one. That should say pupils were sorted on ability. Sorted based on ability.
Stacey, Becker,
Rist,
Rosenthal and Jacobson. Someone insisting it's Rosenthal and Jacobson, whether we say it is or not.
Well, it does.
It could be.
I mean, it does fit all the criteria.
It does. Someone was saying the Tigers.
Archer.
And, was it Rist?
Yeah, Rist. Tigers and the Clowns. Tigers, Cardinals and Clowns. Yeah.
Lacey, Archer. Yeah.
Lots of these
setting.
Lots of these would be. Some people are saying Gilbourne and Udell.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people. Did I just see somebody? Davison Moore role allocation as well. Yeah. Let's reveal the next part. This might give it away a little bit more. We have had the correct answer so far, by the way. Based on the term used in military hospitals.
So a concept that they developed. Used in A&E as well. I was there on Sunday. And I had this. I had to go through this process.
Well, I haven't told you yet, but so like we were there last week. So it's clearly a thing over Easter. You know what I mean? Based on the term used in military hospitals, lots of people are coming out with Gilbourne and Udell educational triage. Let's reveal our fifth one to see what happens.
I think we're there, aren't we?
Associated with the A to C economy, educational triage. It is. It is. But we're talking about Gilbourne and Udell. Educational triage. It is a system that is employed usually in schools, whereby they will. It's kind of not. Sorry, it's not an explicit system that's used. Basically, they will allocate resources based upon students who need it the most. So your borderline pupils, those who are on a CD borderline in kind of old money, it now be sort of like 3-4 borderline nowadays. They would spend more time with them trying to get them to a higher grade. Those who would look like they were going to fail and were seen as no hopers were left just to fail, and those who were predicted to get A's, they were just kind of they're going to get an A, so they're going to be okay. So Gilbourne and Udell found that pupils who were in the borderline cases got most of the resources allocated to them rather than to those who were really struggling and failing. It's a similar way it's worked in the triage system in the military. I say the military because that's what would happen. The triage system originally came from the military, where if somebody was wounded, you'd have your wounded, your walking wounded, and your hopeless cases, and resources would be allocated based upon who was most likely to survive. So those who were kind of the walking wounded would just be given pain relief. Those who were sort of like who they think they could make it, they would spend most of the resources on those, and those who had very little hope were just left.
Lots of
And
people
so
asking where
Gilbert
you
and
could
Udall
use
that.
this. Lots of people asking where you could use this. Is this in-school factors? Could you relate
In-school
it to
processes.
ethnicity?
In-school processes, it can be applied to ethnic groups. It can be applied to social class. Can be applied to boys as well.
Yeah,
Sometimes. What I would say is make sure that you make that explicit link, and sort of like say that boys are perceived as being no hopers, therefore they, Gilbert and Udall talk about the A to C economy, and boys are more likely to be, so whatever.
Yeah.
And yes, you could use it in school processes as well. That's another good one. So let's look at our second big reveal. Again, research into social class and education. So we know people know a lot about social class and education.
So
Can we give up some theories?
We might have already had it through another one, mightn't we? Because people have been.
We may have.
A lot
Yeah.
of them. Okay.
So social class ethnicity linking to gender could be kind of confusing. You can do it. And certainly, sort of like there are some pieces of research that focus specifically on a certain ethnic, social class, and gender groups.
Yeah. So, for example,
and when you can do
white
that,
boys, or for example, there might be a for that.
Yeah, you can. I mean, there's lots of different pieces of research, so you can do it. And we've seen this in the past with a few of the questions that are coming up now. They are coming up with a little bit more of an intersectional approach, so it might be useful if you can link those. So lots of people coming through with similar ideas about social class. So let's look at our second one. Let's narrow it down a bit. This focused on both external and internal factors. Now, this could be a bit tricky. External and internal factors. It may be something that we learned outside of school but was used inside of school. For example. Lots of people coming through with Bourdieu and Bernstein, which I would expect, to be honest with you. They are two really, really useful bits of research where you can link the external to the internal, what happens at home and is reflected in school. Yeah. Let's look at our third one. Conducted interviews with pupils from different backgrounds. Remember, Bourdieu was a little bit more theoretical. Bernstein did conduct interviews with pupils from different backgrounds. Lots of people have got it. I think lots of people are coming up with it. Yeah. Next one. Found different levels of ability with speech codes. Yes, lots of people saying Bernstein. Archer did do interviews in schools as well, so lots of people asking about that. Restricted and elaborated code. Well and done, it is, people. As we noticed halfway down, it is Bernstein.
Well done for getting
our final one.
Early. Yeah.
Our final one. Now, this is research into the impacts of marketization.
That should.
We should narrow it down a bit because we don't. We cover maybe half a dozen bits of research that look at marketization. Okay. People at Rakowski, that's a good one. Sorry, it seems to be coming through faster on my screen than on there.
Some people
Chubb and Mo.
Yeah, so some people have gone for new right people like Chubb and Mo, and I saw Murray as well. And obviously they would be in favour of marketisation, not necessarily talked about. Well, they might talk about its impacts, its positive impacts. But we've seen some others there, Ball and Gowitz.
Ball and Gowitz.
Who would, okay.
I think let's go. Look at parental choice of schools. Nobody's going to change their mind here, are they? Some people are going, Ball. Ball did talk about it, and it's very, Ball co-authored. This one as well. Yeah, okay, number 3. I'll reveal it. We've got it, I think. Argued middle class have more choice. 3 distinctive groups of parents. Local disconnected, semi-skilled and skilled choosers. Yes, well done to those people who got Gowitz very early on. Chubb and Mo looked at the American education system. And sort of like proposed a voucher system.
Yeah, so they wanted there to be more marketization in the American public school system. So they are good ones to use in the context of marketization. Absolutely. Lots of people went with the right answer there. One of the most often misspelt sociologists, and to be honest, I can't remember if we've spelt it correctly this time or not. It's where the R goes. I'll have to
where the R goes.
Yeah. Okay, we've got to categorise now. So we're going to have
cream skimming and silt shifting. Sorry, somebody's asked who did cream skimming and silt shifting. Was Bartlett?
Yeah,
wasn't it Bartlett?
I believe so. Yeah,
it's one of those pieces of research nobody can ever find.
Okay.
It's often cited.
So we've got a 60 seconds categorise activity now where we've got some concepts that relate to either female achievement, male achievement, or both male and female achievement. The things that could have an impact on female achievement, things that could have an impact on male achievement, and things that could potentially have an impact on both. Answers are coming in incredibly quickly, but we have got a little timer for those of you who haven't already given your answers to have a little think about it. I'll have to go through what some. I like the way people are answering each other's questions in the chat window too, which is great.
Always good this time of year. Yeah, what I would say is if there is a concept that we discuss on here that you haven't come across, and that we will try and explain it for you, but sort of like if it's something that you haven't covered, it might just be that you've got a different set of textbooks than other students. There's lots of different responses that you could potentially have. I don't want to give away the answer to bedroom culture because it would help, wouldn't it?
No, because it would give it the answer, wouldn't it? But we'll explain it when we do it. Okay, so lots of correct answers coming through, and lots of very good answers. Let's have a look at them, and then we can just, if we need to explain any of them, I think some of them are reasonably self-explanatory, and then some of them might require a bit more of a discussion. So, specifically impacting on female achievement, we've got the Equal Pay Act, and someone explained that nicely in the chat window that it might mean. Yeah, its introduction in 1970 led to girls aspiring more to pursuing a career because they get paid properly for it, and therefore female achievement started to increase, and prioritising getting good qualifications and going for a career increased after that time. Patriarchy in education, so the impact of patriarchy having potentially a negative impact on girls' achievement. Caitlin's saying, couldn't that impact both? Yeah, I suppose in a roundabout way it could do, because it might benefit boys, I suppose.
I think if we were talking about a trend where boys overachieved versus girls underachieving, I certainly think that would be used.
Yeah. And then bedroom culture is an interesting one. This one again might explain girls doing better in schools, and lots of people there saying it is McRobbie, correct, well done. That she did research about girls spending more time at home and in their bedrooms when boys were out playing outside, and therefore that they perhaps did more activities that helped more with school, like reading and perhaps being creative and things like that, rather than being out playing football or whatever. Is the theory. Okay. Male achievement, we've got laddism and laddish type cultures.
So Sophie's just noticed that there was a slight formatting error on our slide.
Was there? Whereabouts?
Yeah,
sorry.
There was 8 on one, and there's 10 on this one.
Oh, have some more things appeared?
I think it's probably in the table, sort of like when it was put up. It's just.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Don't know how that happened.
We've got 3 number ones.
Do apologise. Okay, yeah, that's
3 number
that must
ones
have been.
there.
Yeah, there aren't there? Sorry, didn't notice that when we were making it. Do apologise. Try and sort that one out later. We've got the crisis of masculinity, hegemonic masculinity has been things that impacted on boys' achievement, and the others all potentially impacting on both. Gendered role models. You could have positive female role models, a lack of male role models, arguably. Gendered subject choices obviously could impact on both. The extent to which it impacts on achievement is an interesting one. If you're talking about subject choice and linking it to achievement, you'd need to, have make some extra links on your sort of chain of analysis there.
Just going to add there, Yama's asked about Nike identities for both genders. Yes, you can use it for both.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And obviously labelling both genders could be labelled in different ways. Okay. Sorry, there was a bit of a formatting mix up there. Not quite sure how. Okay.
You can tell it's live. These things happen
absolutely.
live. Okay, so we're going to move on to a bubble quiz now. The number of answers in a bubble quiz. The bubble quiz is like a multiple choice quiz. We will ask you a question. However, the number of answers that are correct can range between 0 and 4. So let's have a look at our questions. Okay, so we mentioned this earlier on. Which of the following functions serves the needs of the economy? A, promoting social solidarity. B, the correspondence principle. C, the teaching of specialist skills. Or D, transmitting the dominant ideology. Now, dominant ideology might be a dominant ideology of a certain, ism, if you like. So people are going B and C. B and C certainly are correct. Katie's gone for B, C, and D.
As has
And
Mars.
Katie is correct. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, correspondence principle, of course, serves the needs of the economy by producing a docile and subservient workforce. The teaching of specialist skills prepares people for the complex division of labour in modern society, according to Durkheim, and transmitting the dominant ideology, particularly the norms and values of capitalism, or transmitting ideas like meritocracy, can also serve the needs of the economy. So there's three that you could use if you were to get a questions on something like functions of the needs of the economy.
Yeah. A couple of people have said, doesn't A kind of do it as well? And I mean, if you add some more links to your chain of analysis, obviously, if there's social solidarity, that might help the functioning of society, which includes the functioning of the economy. But it's less that one's less clearly so.
Yeah. Let's go question number 2. Which of the following can be applied to social class differences in education? Teacher labelling, subcultural formation, setting and streaming, and cultural capital. Why is it D? Katerina asked.
Because that was the last question.
We could potentially sort of like say that. I mean, from a Marxist viewpoint, they would say that the education system transmits capitalist norms and values that get people to work for low wages, and that get people to kind of, it legitimizes inequality, and that serves the needs of the economy in a very critical way. Lots of people go in people are going A, B, C, D. People are saying all of them. If you said all of them, you are correct. Yeah, this is the thing with a bubble quizzes. They could all be correct. Yes, we can apply teacher labelling to the different social classes. So we can apply positive labelling to the middle class, negative labelling to the working class. Subcultural formation, of course, formation of pro or anti-school subcultures. Setting in streaming, of course, as well. We can apply this to social class. We tend to find the working class more likely to be in the lower sets and streams. And cultural capital, how the education system doesn't doesn't recognise the cultural capital of the working class.
We got a question, I think it was Mia saying, could we link these to sociologists? I mean, obviously, more than one sociologist, or quite a few sociologists have talked about some of these concepts. Labelling we particularly associate with Becker, cultural capital particularly with Bourdieu, but lots of sociologists have talked about subcultures and setting and streaming.
Setting and streaming, subcultural formation. So subcultural formation, the ones I'm thinking about, sort of like particularly with social class, Ward, Willis, I'm trying to think of others. Lacey, and talk about differentiation,
Mac and Gale a bit.
Mac and Gale, setting and streaming. Bowler talks about the process of setting and streaming as being like a psychological prison. So there's lots of different ones that you could use. Educational triage, there's another good example. You can link that in there as well. So Gilbourne and Udell. Which of the following are reasons for girls' improvement in education? Girls' improvement. Is it A, better role models, B, the crisis of masculinity, C, the rise of feminism, or D, laddish subcultures? Mr. A, Murray, I don't know how that's pronounced, sorry if I got it wrong, has gone A and C.
Lots of ACs.
Phoebe's gone A and C, AC, AC, you are all correct. Because the question is focusing specifically on the improvements of girls, we look at changing role models and the rise of feminism there.
The other two could explain why the boys and girls are different, but not specifically why girls have improved. Okay.
Yeah, likewise, if we'd asked that question, which of the following were reasons for boys' underachievement in education, we might have focused on B and D. Yeah. Okay, so it's all about the wording of the question.
Absolutely. Lizzie's mentioned Sharp, and you could link both of those concepts to Sue Sharp's work, couldn't you? And Just Like a Girl. Yeah.
You certainly could, yeah. Which of the following are policies that looked to tackle inequality in education? Now, we did a little bit of marketization policy earlier on, and lots of people sort of like were kind of really hot on marketization policy. One of the policies that people struggle a little bit more with is tackling inequalities. Lots of people coming up with these here. A, free schools, B, pupil premium, C, national curriculum, D, tripartite system. Now, it's tackling inequality. It's very broad. So it can be more than one type of tackling inequality. Lots of people going for A. B.
Which inequality do you
Mine's
think
frozen.
that's?
Mine's frozen there.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I'd say the
I'm
vast
getting
majority
A,
have gone
Bs.
with
Do
A.
lots of
So
A, Bs.
someone who's put A, could you want to explain which type of inequality they think A is addressing?
Well, I'll come to what Pupil Premium did. I'm going to give you the answer.
Yeah, lots of
But B is
people.
the
I've seen
correct
some
answer.
B's and I'm seeing some B's and C's, and a few B, C's and D's. Tilly's gone B, C, D. Holly's gone B, C, D.
Shall we reveal the answer?
Yeah. Those of you who went B, C, D, which few of you did.
No, it could be
Yeah.
debated. Some people could sort of like say, well, some free schools were set up in underprivileged areas, but the general thing we've got back from free schools is they largely set up in middle class areas for by parents who had welfare. Tripartite systems. Some people are saying why, because it was based on ability, essentially. It was based upon ability, and that working class pupils could go onto a grammar school if they had the ability. So it could be seen as tackling social inequality. And lots of working class kids did do really well from the tripartite system. It did
Isabel's right. It wasn't equal, and that's why you end up with comprehensivisation. But it was an improvement on what there was before, which was essentially secondary education wasn't available. Beyond really quite a young age wasn't available to most working class kids unless they could win a scholarship to a grammar school, a non-state grammar school.
Yeah, and
why free school? Sorry. Yeah, explain people. Shall I just say a word about free schools? Because I saw some people saying, "Oh, well, doesn't it help people because of working class?" And then people saying, "Well, what is it?" So by free schools, the policy, we're not talking about free education. Education not having a cost, which obviously I can see why you might assume that's what it is. A free school meaning schooling being free, which obviously we go back a long way in history to go back to schools being made available for free. Free schools were particularly schools that were free from local education authority controls, so similar to academies, but it was the idea of building new schools. Now, some of the arguments in favour of them did link to inequality. So the original Swedish free schools, part of the argument behind it was that there were, like in sort of remote rural areas of Sweden, where there were too long bus journeys and trips to get to larger towns and cities to get to a school, and so parents could set up a new school in this sort of rural remote area, and that would improve access to education. But for the most part, that hasn't been the sort of main rationale behind creating free schools. It's more about more choice, increased choice, so more of a marketization type policy. Sorry, do you want to explain the other?
And Pupil Premium was additional funding that was given to schools who took on pupils who are from disadvantaged backgrounds. And by disadvantaged backgrounds, what we mean is pupils who have special educational needs, pupils who qualified for free school meals, or pupils who lived in areas of deprivation.
Yeah, absolutely. And national curriculum, when we're talking about its impact on inequality, it's specifically one aspect of the national curriculum, which was the kind of desegregation of the curriculum by gender. So girls and boys being taught the same stuff.
There is a point where, sort of like Lizzie's just mentioned there, can the national curriculum promote inequality? Yes, it can potentially promote inequality. And that's one of the things that you're doing when you get into that kind of higher level and you're evaluating. You could suggest that the national curriculum, well, it promoted equality between males and females because it desegregated the curriculum. However, some of the content of the national curriculum may have put certain other groups at a disadvantage because it was seen, as Ball says, as little Englandism. And so therefore it can be kind of wiped out there.
Okay. We've had a question about when asked about policies, should you only talk about the UK? It does depend a little bit on the question, but for the most part, if it's just talking about education policies in general, I would focus on UK education policies.
Yes.
Obviously, if you get questions about linking it to globalization or something like that, then you could talk about other types. And obviously some of the research that we talk about are actually from other from other countries, like Chubb and Mo, for example,
Indeed.
is the US. Yeah.
Chubb and Mo, Bowles and Gintis both were studied on the US education system. Yeah, but I mean that's not really about policy. That's more about functions. So I mean we could, yeah. Caitlin sort of said is some of the studies were in the USA. Yes, they were RIST. I think Rosenthal and Jacobson was as well. I believe even Becker. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to question number 5.
Yeah. Sorry, bear with me a second. There we go.
Thanks.
There's a couple of people saying they've got. I'm just trying to work out: is it a problem with us, or is it totally irrelevant? Is it about something totally different? People talking about having some technical issues, but I'm assuming because most people are still engaging with the questions and stuff that it's not a.
People are answering. I can see them coming through.
So I'm assuming we're okay. Yeah.
I think there might be a slight delay because it's coming through slightly different on my system than it is on YouTube. But that's sorry, it's different speeds.
Yeah.
Okay, so which of the following sociologists would you associate with pupil identities? The formation of identity. Now, this is something that students kind of struggle with. A, Willis, B, Archer, C, Parsons, or D, Patcher. Ooh, Jenny, excellent. A, B, D. A and B.
Yeah. People might not be familiar with D. I was going to say people might not be familiar with D. You might want to explain that one in a moment. Grace saying she's not heard of that one, which is I think you won't be alone in that at all, Grace.
You may have heard of it, like looking at the way in which girls are limited in sporting activities.
Should we have a look?
Because of the way in which people interact with them. So Patcher talked about, it is A, B, and D. Willis, of course, subcultural formation, that obviously has an impact on your identity. Archer, we can talk about Nike identities. We can talk about ethnic identities. Archer's done a lot of work on identity. Patcher is the one that sort of like some people may not have heard of. Talked about sort of like how girls may be steered away from doing certain subjects, like, for example, sports, because they may be perceived as being more masculine. And therefore, they turn away from sports. And obviously, this has a negative impact on their identity.
Few people saying they've not come across Archer either. I mean, obviously there are other people who've researched similar areas, but it's probably worth having a look at what Archer. Because she did a lot of different educational research. So
and a lot in the 21st century as well. So quite contemporary research. It would be seen as Archer was that was Archer, hyperheterosexual identity.
Yeah. Vanessa, is it fine if I don't remember all the names? Absolutely fine if you don't remember all the names. If you think you remember a name, say it, because you'll get credit. Credit for knowing your knowledge, and you'd never be kind of marked down for getting it wrong. But if you're not sure who said it, don't worry. The concept's much more important. Yeah. Okay.
Archer. I saw a video where she described herself as a post-structural feminist.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I don't necessarily think that that's specifically that's not specifically where you would kind of you don't need to sort of like say, oh, and Archer said this, and Archer said that, Archer a feminist said this. It's the work that she's done is based upon it doesn't just focus on girls, quite simply.
Okay, we've got something called a connection wall here. So we've got a wide range of policies, or internal or external policies, up on the screen. In fact, I think they're all just policies.
Just to say there, right. Archer wasn't the Macho Lads. The Macho Lads was Mac and Guile.
Yeah.
That was Mac and Guile's research, and sort of like how they adopted kind of some forms of identity.
So we've got this connection wall. We're looking for 4 groups of 4 policies, what might link them. This is my user suggested one of the groups might be to do with globalization, which it might be. But can we try and work out what the groups might be? Megan's put some together and Anya's put some together. We need to say what you think links them then. So Anya's put EMA, Pupil Premium, laptops and formula funding. If you think that's a link, what do you think the connection is? Should we try and work this out?
EMA, Pupil Premium, laptops, formula funding. So good. What do they have in common?
Few people have gone with that as a link.
Hargreaves is quite an older study looking at the concept of setting and streaming and subcultural formation. Sorry, there's questions come through a couple of times about Hargreaves.
So a couple of people have said compensatory policy. Some people have said gender. Someone said Thatcher's policies. So we've got people are going through a few different routes to this. Someone said tackling inequality, and maybe because someone said tackling inequality generally, and someone else said gender. Maybe we should think about, who were they aiming to help, or what sort of inequality were these policies looking to try and deal with, which might be true for some of them, not necessarily all. We've also got marketization there, parental as a possible connection. Not sure whether they were all okay.
Grace has
So
come through GIST-wise, standardized tests, GCSE and coursework, reading champions, gender inequality.
certainly
Nicely.
certainly a lot of those would be, wouldn't they? Reading champions, national literacy, GIST-wise, GCSE and coursework, gender inequality. Okay. Someone else saying that some of them might be about class, some of them might be about ethnicity. Okay. Let's reveal a set and see whether we've got some of them already. So we've got our marketization ones come up first, which few people did mention that earlier on. Some of those were definitely marketization policies. We've got formula funding, open enrollment, standardized testing and league tables. Definitely work for promoting competition. So those of you who've got formula funding down for a different group might need to rethink for what your fourth one is on the ones where you've included that on other ones. But yeah, those are our marketization policies.
There may be a little bit of confusion between formula funding and another type of funding.
Yeah. Okay. So formula funding is schools being funded for the number of pupils that they attract. So that was very much part of the marketization agenda. It was part of the 1988 Education Reform Act, so that essentially the pupils were acting like customers. They brought funding with them, so it was useful for the schools to attract the pupils. Similar in a way to the sort of voucher system that Chubb and Mo were talking about, although those could also be used potentially in private schools and things as well, which is a bit different. We've got
Is
lots.
Ofsted included? Yeah, Ofsted would be included within promoting competition and choice.
Absolutely, because it provides more information.
Isabel's
to the
come up
parents.
with EMA, pupil premium, lockdown laptops, and GIST and WISE to help disadvantaged in education. Yeah, that would. I mean, they would go. It's not one of our links.
And other people are saying maybe some of them are new labour activities. Options. Let's have a look. Next one, promoting.
New labour.
Promoting choice. So we've kind of had
promoting competition, promoting choice.
Promoting choice. So we had competition on the last one. We got choice on this one. So there being greater types of schools. Well done, Humna. So that different types of schools. Okay, so choice and competition we often talk about together, but we've separated them out here. The other ones were about very much schools competing with each other. These ones are about there being a wide range of schools to choose from. They do go together. Then we did have the economic inequality or social class, which quite a lot of you did spot. Pupil premiums, funding for pupils from disadvantaged backgrounds, lockdown laptops was something during lockdown, obviously, COVID policy to provide laptops for people who needed them. Educational maintenance allowances are, someone was asking earlier about policies that no longer exist. Can you talk about them? And depending on the context, you absolutely can. It was a policy that was brought in by the Labour government, giving £30 a week, up to £30 a week to pupils to stay on in school after 16, but was dropped in 2010. And the original academies, the city centre academies, were originally introduced in inner city areas and areas where there was high levels of deprivation, so were seen as being to help working class pupils. IDK is promoting choice, reducing inequality. Not necessarily. No.
It can create new forms of inequality, can't it, really? Because not everybody has an equal choice of which school to go to. So it can work a number of different ways. So when you're looking at policies that promote choice, they don't necessarily tackle inequality, but some might. So, for example, the introduction of city centre academies, not only does it give pupils more choice of where they can go, but it also tackles inner city inequality. So it's not a hard and fixed question. It depends on the policy, really.
And the last 4 were about gender inequality, which quite a lot of people did get. There's a question there: what are reading champions? I was leaving that for
Oh, sorry, you were leaving it
to tell
me.
us what.
Yes, there was a policy. Yeah, Reading Champions was an initiative that was introduced. I want to say in the early part of the 2000s, because I know there were Premier League footballers that were involved with it, like Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard were involved in promoting boys reading books. It was kind of an extension of the national literacy strategy to try and get more boys reading it. I mean, there is very similar initiatives happening now. It's an ongoing thing to try and get boys to read more, but Reading Champions was one of those where they took sports figures and said, "Oh, this is my favourite book," to encourage boys to read alongside them. Beckham, Beckham was another one.
A few people asking what's just a lot of people asking how long is this live on for. We're nearly there. Nearly. People asking what was Just and Wise, and Katerina's replied what just was Girls in Science and Technology on Phoebe. Yeah, absolutely. Women in Science and Engineering. So these were schemes originally introduced in the 80s. I think Wise is still in place.
Yeah, Wise replaced Gist, didn't it?
Yeah, and they're
oh, go on.
No, you finish your.
I was going to say Wise just was up until like mid 80s, and then Wise took over from that.
Yeah, I just encourage girls to take STEM subjects essentially. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we shall come back to the I call it the studio. We're not in a studio, obviously. We're in different. Oh, yeah. Someone said, how did GCSE have an impact for gender inequality? So prior to well, there's a couple of things. So it has been suggested, it wasn't really the aim of it to tackle gender inequality, but it has been suggested that greater emphasis on coursework benefited girls. In that, it's a bit of a debate. It comes up around that kind of feminisation of education debate as well, really. It has to be said that when a lot of the coursework was taken away again, girls continued to outperform boys initially after that. So maybe it was overstated how big an impact that did. Okay, will this be the last education live before the exams? I very much doubt it. No, it will not be, no. Okay, if the question specified in the UK today, would you not be able to talk about EMA? You wouldn't want to suggest that it was still around in England today. There was an interesting question earlier about does it still exist in Scotland? And I, off the top of my head, I don't know the answer, but I might check because it might be.
There are bursaries, but I mean, the strange thing is that there are different policies that exist for the Northern Irish, the Welsh, the English, and the Scottish education systems.
Yeah. Could they ask us a 30 marker on globalization? They could ask you any tariff of question on anything that's on the spec. So in theory, yes, but don't have a big moral panic about it because it happens every year. And, there's lots you could say, but it's specifically about policy and global. Where globalization comes up in the education topic, it's particularly in relation to policy, and it could come up as a 10 marker. It could come up.
It's come up as I think it came up as a 4 marker a few years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there has been a sort of globalization and policy question at some point. It wasn't a 30 marker.
It's a very short one.
Yeah. Okay. When will the next live be? There is one on Thursday at 2:00 for research methods. So if you're around on Thursday and want to revise some research methods, come along on Thursday. We will be doing lots and lots of revision sessions in the run-up to the exams, including some where it's more like you're wanting to do now. Just ask us loads of questions and we will answer them, and we will do those, particularly like a day or two before each of the exams. So keep an eye on those as well.
Just to answer you, because he keeps asking about, are we doing a global development one? We did a couple of global development ones that were pre-recorded last year. Yeah. And which you'll find on YouTube. Obviously, when it comes to paper 2, we tend to focus on the bigger topics, because obviously we have a very short time to do them in, and there's 8 different topics. So we tend to kind of go with beliefs, family, media, and what we can do during that period of time, because obviously there's a half term during then, so there will be more live streams coming up, and whether we do pre-recorded ones for like some of the niche topics or not, we will see. We don't know just yet.
Yeah, and we will put out a timetable on all the social media channels and stuff for the pre-exam sessions, which will be in a couple of weeks' time. Okay.
Yes, as somebody's just said, Flair, do sign up to our website. It's free. There are 90 odd of these that we've done in the past over the last 4 or 5 years. There's lots of other things that you can get for free, checklists, all sorts of knowledge organisers on the way.
Yeah.
Please don't do them on the same day as Business Tutor to You.
We'll try it. We'll try it
every day.
Yeah.
Business works so hard. Business are almost constantly live.
We'd struggle not to do it on the same day as business because they do it every day, but we'll try not to clash too often.
I think if you log onto the Tutor to You website, you'll probably see sort of like Jim in the office on a live and Graham sort of like at home on a live, because they do a lot.
They do
so
do an awful lot.
We will try not to do it at the same time as them.
We'll try to avoid clashing. Someone asked if Thursday's research methods is sociology or psychology. Thursday at 2:00 is sociology. I know psychology are doing some as well.
Psych are doing some as well.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
Lots of love for Jim and Graham in our
absolutely.
Comments,
and they very much deserve it.
They are lovely guys. Yeah.
Okay. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.